Hi, everybody. It's Leon here, and we have Joyce again on this channel. We're going to talk about the rest of the functions of the INFJ. So last time we spoke about introvert intuition, extrovert feeling, introvert sensing, and also extrovert thinking. And today we're going to talk about extrovert sensing, introvert thinking, extrovert intuition, and introvert feeling. So welcome to the channel, Joyce.
Glad to be back on.
Awesome. So yeah, we're going to talk about how these functions function in the INFJ. We're going to use this handy dandy website called World Socionics Society, and has a description of a type called the IEI, which I correspond with the INFJ, and a lot of people do too. Not everyone's in agreement with that. By the way, I'll be interviewing Joyce on my other channel, and we'll be talking about learned helplessness, inferiority complex, and how you could work with and heal from this. So be sure to check out that interview, and I have it down below in the description box. Okay, let's get started here. We first off with force. So that is the other term for that is extrovert sensing. So I'm going to read off little sections, and then Joyce is going to say how she corresponds with this description of extrovert sensing in the type. So the introspective nature of INFJs leaves them quite unaware of events happening to them in the present. Naturally caught up in their own thoughts and reflections, INFJs often have a clearer view of vague future events than what is in front of their face. This causes them to be very indecisive in their daily behavior, knowing the outcome they're hoping for, but lacking the presence needed to take action and ensure such an outcome.
Yeah, so I do
Mhm.
think that INFJs struggle with being present.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, they can report feeling like they're floating heads
Mhm.
and they're thinking about the future pacing, and they can oftentimes not really notice what's in front of their face. A building can be in front of them or a tree for 10 years, and it's like, oh, was that always in front of me? And you're like, yes, I think it was, because it makes sense, because trees don't grow overnight. All right, I did not notice that.
Does that absolutely shock ESTPs or ESFPs in your life?
Yes, they are very shocked, and it's it's puzzling. How does this human being exist?
How about in terms of the indecisiveness in daily behaviors and kind of knowing the outcome, but not knowing exactly how to get there?
I think a lot of INFJs are dissatisfied or restless with daily things, and
Mm-hmm.
so they can be indecisive because
Mm.
neither option feels that right. So it's like, and none of these are good options. So they can be unsure of which outcome to take because they all kind of seem like settling.
Okay, what kind of options are y'all considering?
It's kind of like with workplaces. Sometimes any job that you go to, they'll have some level of dissatisfaction in it. And
Mm.
so it's like, oh, right, am I just going to be half fulfilled in every job that I'm in? So there can be an indecisiveness with certain things
All
because
right,
it never feels fully in line with the sort of vision or the way that you want to be living. And it's not mentally stimulating, too.
right. So it's like always like looking for something that's ideal.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. The paralysis can be so severe that they could come across as weak wallflowers or people who bend too easily to higher authority. However, in order to reach desired outcomes, they feel that reality has to be confronted and pushed on to the right path. As a result, they tend to be attracted to those with strength of will, who have the energy to make things happen. How do you relate to this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm attracted to people with very charismatic energies
Hmm.
who have a presence in life.
Hmm.
Yeah. Maybe it's opposites attract. We're all
Right.
moving towards that.
Hmm. But it's kind of like there's a bit of a contrast here, right? So it says they may come up as weak wallflowers or bend too easily, but then they're also set to have like a desired outcome.
Yeah. That can also speak to the behind the scenes quality that a lot of INFJs or introverts may have, of
Right.
feeling a little bit like the wallflower. And so it can be very attractive to have someone who is the opposite of that.
Right. So they may make subtle appeals to their emotions and sense of urgency when they feel it is the right time to act, causing the more powerful to fight in their stead. Alternatively, many INFJs will seek to be less passive, looking to strong, willful people as examples that can inspire them to act, if only for a limited duration.
Yeah, I think it's good to have people who are your cheerleaders in some
Mm-hmm.
aspects that can inspire you to take action. That's helpful. A little bit of a push is good because it's easy to get stuck in your mind so much that you end up not taking a lot of action in the outer worlds.
Right. So it's you want to have that introvert intuition balanced out, perhaps by extrovert sensing.
Yeah, the thought to action ratio, you want it to be a little bit more balanced.
Right. I know socionics, it tends to be a theory that espouses this idea of opposites attract, like literal opposites, like opposite types, ESTP, INFJ in this case, right? How much do you agree with that kind of concept? How much do you not really?
I would have to try it out. For science. Yeah.
For science sake. Okay, we'll be documenting this. Have a reality TV. So you and the ESTP together, and we'll be filming you all 24/7. Lacking a connection to the reality of the situation, they can appreciate a firm shake by the shoulders to ground them, an authoritative tone to tell them how things really are. Indeed, no other type can maintain both compassion for the suffering of the underdog and a reverence for the brutality of the strong as the INFJ.
Yeah, I think that's a really poetic and good way to sum it up. I think it has a lot of correlation with Enneagram 4 too.
So how do you see this manifest in yourself if you do?
Yeah, well, I'm not very connected to reality. It feels like there's not a lot of a string there. It seems like the IEI likes it when there's an authority also to kick them or to help them with getting into the real world. And that can be nice. They can maintain compassion for the suffering of an underdog. Yeah, I think that I have a big tender heart too for humanity and for the dignity of anything that's suffering.
Right.
And reverence for the brutality of the strong. So a respect for the strong. Yeah, as long as that's not misused. Yes.
Right. So long as it's properly used, like for a good cause, for example.
With great power comes great responsibility.
So the next one is laws, which is introvert thinking. So it says INFJs tend to possess a strong desire to prove their intellect to others and often approach this need in trying to form a consistent, clear understanding of themselves and the world they occupy with a natural, fluid, and ever-changing perception of events. It's common for them to adopt an ideology or credo that outlines the principles they believe in, providing needed structure to their visions and beliefs.
It seems like there's this really big focus on a strong belief in that vision or the principles that they have. Yeah. I mean, that there is that, and there is the desire to want to have that in the world too. Because if you know like the most ideal way that the world could be, why would you want anything other than the best outcome? That would just seem like everything else is nonsensical.
Did you feel like there is like an outline in your head, like you have these principles and you kind of almost have written it out either on paper or in your mind?
Yeah. I think a lot of things in the world kind of teach you what not to be. So they're anti-role models. There are the role models that you have, the people who show you what it's like to model a better world or how it's like to have great virtue. And then there are others who, wow, they really teach you the whole list of things that you shouldn't be. And so I think from that you learn, or I learn a clear understanding of how the world could be or should be.
Well, do you like, for example, do you like to listen to TP types and when they speak and kind of explain things in their own understanding?
Yeah.
Can you express like how does that feel to you when you hear that?
When I hear TP types talking about their TI, I realize how my TI is not as strong as theirs.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where I'm like, yeah, you know what? My TI is great. And then I listen to a TP type talk and I'm like, I have misspoken. Nope. And so there is a reverence I have towards their ability to wield TI. However, sometimes I find that they can get very stuck in their logic too. And so there is a desire for me to be able to speak TI well, but I don't want to always be like a TI dominant type who, like, at their worst, sometimes they can stick to their TI principles, even if the situation proves otherwise, because of the lower NE or SE that allows in new information. So I respect them, but I guess I also want to have TI without the being held back by getting stuck in it too much.
Right. So you see that TI provides a sense of clarity, but at the same time, it's a bit too rigid for you.
Yeah. It could contribute to my stubbornness, the TI in my stack.
Mm-hmm.
I see it in other people, but I also have a little bit of it myself.
Mm-hmm. And how does that look like in you or other INFJs?
We can kind of be like walls sometimes. We'll talk, and then TI has a certain way of coming up with an airtight explanation for something.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when someone will give me a counter argument, I already have an airtight, I've already thought about that counter argument. And sometimes it doesn't allow in that new way of thinking if I get too stuck in that kind of zone. It doesn't always happen, but there are moments like that.
Sometimes this can lead to fanaticism, so you're kind of referring to that a bit, with an obsession on their chosen ideology at the expense of real needs and common sense. Often drawn to philosophy and structures of thought, they could spend a lot of time trying to figure out their priorities in life and standards for them to live by. When deciding these standards, they could become rather stubborn and resist challenges to their logic, instead being more open to those who can validate or add to their understanding and bring some of their finer points to clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that draw to philosophy exists in a lot of INFJs.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like the blend between philosophical and psychological thought. And yeah, it can be hard to figure out what you really want in life because there isn't a job necessarily tailored towards INFJ strengths. Yeah, and so
there's shamanism or being the shaman.
Yeah, we'll all be the people who feed you ayahuasca because you can't find any other. I think a really good position for INFJs is there's something called a philosophical counselor, I believe, where you help guide people's lives through helping them figure out their meaning in life or how to make sense of meaning. But we can't all take that role.
I could already hear your practical friends around you saying, "Where's the money in this?"
Sometimes the Asian family has to scream in their abhorrence of the INFJ's life path.
Despite this stubbornness, the INFJ may decide not to make their disagreement obvious to others, sometimes giving the impression of agreement. However, they could give away if exposed to superior or flawless reasoning. They will only appreciate structural or principle-based logic rather than any practical how-to advice. This brings a sense of integrity in their ideals, where despite being agreeable and adaptable, they maintain a sense of their core principles.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like this prioritization of this inner structure compared to this outer structure.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people can discount your argument even if it means missing the point. So they're like, oh, you know, there's flaws in your reasoning, but the overall point or the vision makes sense. And that can be infuriating because it's like, well, you're critiquing the thing that's not even the main point. It feels like you're being strawmanned.
Right.
And so it seems like it's talking about that here.
Move on to expert intuition or ideas. So with their focus on a singular underlying purpose, they have little interest in speculating or brainstorming multiple possibilities. Although they are perfectly capable of considering multiple alternatives, they choose not to unless it is absolutely necessary to the situation. After all, considering backups or alternatives to the main vision suggests that the predicted outcome may be wrong and would only lead to confusion and dissolution of resolve.
Yeah. There is a singular underlying quality to NI or NI that rejects NE in a certain sense. And so this visionary nature, when you have too much brainstorming or speculating happening, it's distracting to the overall vision. It's like that's unnecessary and irrelevant to this future aim. And so they can consider multiple alternatives, but it may not be relevant. So the extroverted sensing may also be like, well, does this have any relevance to the current situation? Probably not.
You certainly prioritize like this future vision over many different possibilities that might get in the way of it. So I remember you mentioning before, it's almost like expert intuition kind of builds a train track and builds another one and builds more, and you prefer to keep going on one.
Yeah, you want to go deeper down a hole. You want to find X marks the spot and you want to keep going further rather than exploring all that you could. Like once you find the X, you want to stick with it till the very end of it. You don't want to be an endless explorer of all the unknown ideas.
And why is that important for you?
Because it feels like there's a purpose to that.
So kind of like this being like the meandering explorer, it kind of feels like there's a purposelessness to it.
Yeah.
Rather than dip into a variety of areas of interest, they prefer to focus on a particular area that they feel brings personal meaning to their existence and will devote themselves to that area. However, they may be more happy exploring a range of ideas within their scope of devotion if that somehow adds to the meaning of their activity. For them, what could possibly happen is unimportant and meaningless in comparison to the destiny that will happen, with their approach being to actually limit the number of possibilities available and ensure the desired outcome. For them, the possibilities often serve as distractions from the right path and as such possess no merit.
Like I was saying before, it's when you entertain possibilities that don't have to do with getting deeper down an idea or the vision of something, it can feel like it's an unimportant or meaningless rabbit hole unless you can take diversions too, but if it's all leading towards something, it's okay. But sometimes it can feel like if it's just possible, like sometimes it can feel like a distraction from what really matters as well. So I do love ideas. It's just that sometimes when you have something that's building towards something, it can make you feel more fulfilled.
So when you feel like things are being derailed, does it make you feel anxious?
It just makes me wonder what the main idea that we're trying to do, like talk about in the conversation is. So I'll try to just put us back on track.
And how do you feel? Have you ever felt like you were in a place where you were following an introvert intuition mission and you realize it's not the right way to go and you need to switch?
Yeah, that's when my extroverted intuition friends are really great because they'll help provide all of these alternatives right away. And it's like, oh, you have a really good point.
Okay, cool. You guys are influenceable.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Okay. All right. So relations. So INFJs tend to operate on a one-to-one basis, being able to form intense emotional connections with individuals. Furthermore, they have a good sense of people and tend to be able to make the right friends in the right situations. Nevertheless, they are not so interested in character judgment and the formation of close bonds for its own sake. Instead of keeping good people close and bad people at a distance, they prefer to assess whether a person's destiny is tied with their own and others, creating long-term relationships with those that do.
Yeah, I think that goes to the long-term orientation of NI.
Hmm.
And I know this is talking about FI, right?
This is
In
talking
sociology.
about introvert feeling, right?
Yeah. I think that there's a quality of wanting to create long-term relationships with people who further your destiny in some sort of way, or
Hmm.
who feel like they're your destiny mate. So their soulmate. And then there are people who it feels like their red thread of destiny is tied with your red thread of destiny. And it can feel like when someone's adding to your purpose that they're even more meaningful in your life too,
Mm,
because they're almost adding to the betterment of something that's deeply important to
right.
you as well.
Yeah. Well, it basically says here like your introvert feeling is strong. It's done for an introvert intuition purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose for this is less directed towards the individual's worth in relation to the INFJ, but rather to pull compatible individuals together into a circle of belonging and camaraderie, rather than judging the inner character of an individual. They will look to see if a person belongs within their desired circle, being able to subtly draw the right people in and leading out those they feel do not belong.
Yeah. It seems like there's this emphasis placed on the chemistry between the individuals inside your social circle, or the
Mhm.
role that they play in interaction with each other. Yeah. So it seems like everything is intentional. And I feel like INFJs are very intentional people. Um, one, because you have a very limited amount of energy, but two, it's also like you want every single piece in your life to play something that matters.
Mhm.
It's almost everything is one, if you want to relate it back to the vision. It's like you're creating a play and you want everything to be orchestrated in a way that honors the theme of the play.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
it's yeah. It's just how Disneyland, they have everything in the theme. Even the trash cans are Disney themed too. Like nothing is not Disneyed. Like the IEI wants their whole life to be curated around every piece really fitting in with the vision.
Hmm. Interesting. So again, this is using very strong introvert feeling and towards an introvert intuition ends, but also an extrovert feeling ends because there's this feeling of creating a circle. Do you feel like you're creating like a circle, like people who kind of belong in that Disneyland?
Yeah.
Cool. And what's the purpose of this? It's kind of like a shared sense of vision, shared sense of destiny.
Yeah, I think there is.
Hmm.
It feels like it's the circle of destiny. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In this way, they once they have the people they feel they need, they're less inclined to seek other people out to get to know. With those who they feel belong, they wish to close the gap and connect profoundly and authentically. Although successfully closing the gap often requires a clear demonstration of interest and desire from the other person. So I guess that's a bit of that expert sensing there, like a bit of like the other person kind of needs to like almost like strongly show interest.
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm. In this way, they attempt to experience intensity of feeling and longing in a company of significant others, rather than deciding whether a particular person is appropriate to experience such feelings with. Within such circles of belonging, they're able to feel that something momentous and important will come to pass.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a lot of people who have a shared vision in mind, or they can play a very complementary role to yours, it does feel like you're building something beautiful together.
Hmm. I find interesting here is they're not so much interested in character judgment and the formation of close bonds for its own sake. So do you find that to be true? Like you don't make as much character judgment. Good people are close or bad people are distant. It's more like, who do I have some sort of karmic connection to, I
Yeah.
guess.
Hmm.
Hmm. And how does that look like?
It looks like intentionally curating a garden of people who are, it feels like there's some sort of soul significance. Like you guys were meant to be friends and cross paths. Those kind of connections where you know that they're good company to keep around. They're healthy parts of your garden. You want to keep seeds and as opposed to weeds. So there are just some connections that aren't good for your overall vision, and some that are more like seeds that can sprout a lot of amazing fruit in your life.
Right. Excellent. So Joyce, thank you so much for talking about all the functions of the INFJ. I know this is like a lot of material, and I'm happy that you were able to share how you relate to it from your own experience.
Yeah, of course, Leon. It's always a privilege and an honor to be on your show.